So in my last writing tips and tricks video, I made a comment about my outlining process for my books, and it occurred to me that I haven't made a video about how to plan your books. So let's talk about that. Let's start with establishing what an outline is. An outline is the basic planning for what your novel will look like. For some people, it will be their story's Bible that they follow religiously, and for others, it will be a suggestion. The point of an outline is to take all the ideas that are banging around in your head and start organizing them, so when you're in the trenches of writing, and if you get stuck or lost, you'll have something to refer back to help get you back on track.
Back to basics!
The first step to outlining your book is to have a story you have to get out. If you don't have that fundamental flaw blemishing your soul, then this video isn't for you and you should leave. Run far away and go enjoy your life and people and whatever it is people do when they're not holed up in their house crying with or at their keyboard. If you do have a story you need to get out, then here are 10 ways, in no particular order, to outline your book. This will be the bane of getting your book published, so it might as well be the bane of getting it started, too. The synopsis outline is what it sounds like. You write a quick summary of what your plot is about and who your main characters are. There are many different ways to do a synopsis. In this regard, once you're finished and trying to get published or just trying to tell your story to friends, it's really hard. But the outline is just for you, so you can make it as messy and unhinged as you like. And that's the upside to the synopsis outline. It can help take the jumbled mess in your head and get it organized and give your story structure. I've found some advice that says keep it to one page. Others that say it should be broken into paragraphs based on the beginning, middle, and end. Or you should write separate synopsises for characters and plot, but none of those are hard and fast rules. The point of an outline is to get the planning for your book out so you'll have something to refer to later to help you stay on task and stay organized while writing. If you need to keep the synopsis short, do. If you need 1 paragraph for the plot but 5 for the characters, write it. And if the synopsis isn't working for you, there are plenty of other outlines you can try, including... Some people are visual thinkers. I am a visual thinker, and it's my eternal torment that I can't take the very clear picture in my head and draw them out. I've tried. The paper got mad and yelled at me, but other people might have a scrap of artistic ability or not care as much as I do, in which case you can use a visual outline. A visual outline is basically when you draw pictures of the important moments of your book. You can draw as many or as few pictures as you need. And if you want to write what's in each picture, you can totally do that. But if you're a good enough artist that you can come back to what you drew later and know what it is supposed to be, no need for the explanation. The perks of a visual outline is that it can help give you an idea for what you want your book to look like. And I mean that in a couple different ways. If you struggle with describing coming back to these pictures later, and describing them can help. And it can help you remember what the important moments are and how they happen. Plus, it's a great way to get those creative juices flowing and actually get you to start writing. But if drawing isn't for you, another outline method is... With a bookend outline, you write out what you want the beginning and ending of your plot and character arcs to look like and skip over the middle. Now, I didn't find many specifics on what your bookend outline should look like, but again, that's the point of the outline. It's purely to help you. If you find it most helpful to have 70 sticky notes on your wall, use them. It might help to draw it out like a visual outline. It might help to write out a synopsis for the beginning and end of your book. It might help to use 70 note cards in a binder, or it might help to make a serial killer board. The only problem with that one is explaining why you have a serial killer board to anyone who might ever see it. And there are tons of resources online to help you. I'm not going to suggest any of them now because I'm a gremlin who uses Excel to write my book, but the resources are out there. The upside to this outline is mainly that it gives me an excuse to show off my bookends. If you hear a loud crash, that's all my books that these were holding up. It also helps you highlight the progress of your story, see the contrast between how things change from beginning to end clearly, and it can help you nail down the beginning of your book by diving into it more, and it can make the ending feel more natural since you'll flesh that out more. The obviously downside is that you might not use the ending by the time you get there after you've started writing, and it might leave the middle a lot less fleshed out. If you already have a good idea for what the middle of your book will look like, this is the outline for you. If not, you could use There are a few different ways to structure your overall story. There's the 3-act structure and 4-act structure and the hero's journey, which I'm not going to get into too much detail on this video since they're a video all their own. But the handy-dandy thing about act structures is that they come with their own visuals with one quick Google search. Everyone has already outlined what different act structures look like, and if you're struggling to make sense of your story and find yourself meandering with side plots or characters who just won't do what you want them to, then you can turn to the act structures to tighten things up. They are tried and true methods for plotting to let you know where you need to put events in your story and what you need to come after those events. The downside to this outline method is that your plot will be somewhat predictable and that it is very plot-centric. So another outline method you could use is... This is the evil twin to the act structure outline. Or not evil, it depends on the morality of your world and characters. The point is that a character outline focuses mainly on the characters and fleshing them out and less on the plot. And I want to use this moment to reiterate that you can use more than one outline method. Obviously, you shouldn't get bogged down in the outline. At some point, you'll need to take the plunge, watch some of my old videos, and write. But the outline is for you. Make it what you need. The character outline does what the name says. It outlines your characters. For the main characters, this may involve writing about their motivations, who they are, what they want, what their relationships are. But for other characters, it might just be a name, age, and gender because your protagonist has an uncle, but he's not important to the story. This is a great method to help you learn about your characters and get invested in them, which will ultimately help your reader get invested in them as well. And it can also shape your plot somewhat, because once you know what your characters' flaws are and what they want, you can start thinking of ways to hurt them. Insert quip about the serial killer board here. If you're feeling stuck with your story, like you don't have a strong grasp on your plot or characters, it can help to look at it from a different angle, and the reverse outline does that. The reverse outline starts with outlining what happened at the end of your book, and then works backwards. Writing does not need to be linear. It is fine to write events out of order, to plan things out of order, and to go back and change up that order later. If you know your story is going to end with a fight at the top of a snowy mountain, but you have no idea how your characters got there, this outline method can really help. It will force you to think step by step what needs to happen to get your characters from one spot to another. The downside of the reverse outline is that writing is messy. I've had to move chapters around in my writing, and it is such a pain to have to go back to a bunch of other chapters and take bits and pieces of events that were either caused by the chapter that used to come before that, or delete a callback. And sometimes in writing, the endings you start with will not be the one you end with. That's fine, but if you do have a propensity to change your ending, this isn't the outline for you, at least not without a big risk of getting bogged down in the outline. Another method that might work better is... This is similar to a reverse outline, but it's less reliant on the sequence of events for your book. With this outline, you're plotting out what's going to happen in each chapter. This may be something as basic as saying what the names for each character are, or writing a quick synopsis for each chapter. I actually tried a chapter-by-chapter outline when I first started writing, and it kind of worked for me. I chose violence and wrote a minimum of 1 paragraph for each chapter. That really helped me flesh out my book and what my characters were doing, but it also took forever. At some point, I did use it as a procrastination method and not a writing method. Plus, with me, I kept outlining my chapters, but I have the bad habit of writing long chapters, and my outlines would often turn into 2 or 3 chapters. So my advice is to keep the summary for each chapter short. It can be 2 sentences, what happened in the chapter and how your characters were affected by it or reacted to it. And if this advice sounds terrible, that's fine. I'm sure someone else will get a lot out of writing a paragraph synopsis for each chapter. But if going through and describing the content of each chapter sounds awful to you, another outlining method is... A mind map is another visual method of outlining. Basically, you write out the central idea of your book. Maybe it's the ending, maybe it's the plot, maybe it's the setting, or maybe it has to do with the characters. And then using that as the center, you create arms that somewhat relate to it. A mind map is sort of the gritty outline because its big appeal is that it will just help you get the ideas out. If you have a ton of ideas for your story, but they all seem disconnected, then you can use a mind map. Having it all out on paper, and if you've put them on cards or sticky notes or serial killer wall, you can move those arms around and help look at things from a new angle. A mind map is fairly simple as far as outlines go, and that's the point. It can be what you make it, but it can also be hard to work without that structure that other outlines may give you. And once you have a better grasp on all your ideas, you may need to turn to another outline method to help organize your characters and plot. And another outline method that can help is... It snowed last night, but it's not snowing now, and now most of the snow is melting, so I will not be going into my backyard and sitting in the snow like I had planned.
It's snowing! It's snowing!
At the time of writing this script, we've had some cold and slushy mornings, but no real snow yet. It's coming through, so if this part of the video sounds contemptuous, it's because I am anticipating driving in the snow. Luckily, you don't need to go out into the cold to use this snowflake method. The snowflake method starts a little like a mind map with a central point that you work off of. With this, you take the character's plot and setting, and you write a 1-sentence synopsis for each. If you have a lot of characters, you might have to prepare for a snowstorm, so be careful with using this method. Then once you have that 1 sentence, you expand on it by turning it into a whole paragraph. Then you expand on it some more into multiple paragraphs, a page or several pages, until you feel like your plot, setting, and characters are all thoroughly fleshed out. This is a great way to keep your story tight and to really help give you an idea of what your characters and story look like. The downside is the 1-sentence synopsis. When I was first researching this video, I had to jump to a different tab when I saw the snowflake method because summaries are hard for me, and the idea of a 1-sentence summary is horrible. But if you like summaries and if you're struggling with figuring out the finer details of your story, this is the outline method that will work for you. And last but certainly not least is... I lied when I said this list was in no particular order. This is in the number 1 spot because it's the best, because it's the outline method I use. At least, it's the closest to the one I use. With the skeleton outline, you're just quickly jotting down the bare bones of your story. You write down what the status quo is, what breaks it, what events happen, the climax, and then the resolution. And with characters, I don't use exactly the skeleton outline, but it's still pretty basic. I use a character sheet to really just help me figure out their names, age, and who they know and how they know it. And that's about it.
Back to basics!
A skeleton outline is about keeping it basic, so it's not going to be long paragraphs. Honestly, with my outlines, the bullet points are usually single words, and I trust that when I come back later, I'll know what I meant. And that works for me, because that's how my mind works. The other day I wrote down on my to-do list just baggies, and I remembered what I meant later. This is also an apology to whoever I'm marrying for having to put up with that. but it can be sentences if that's what works best for you. The upside to the skeleton is that it's quick and dirty and it gives you a lot of freedom. I can write down a bunch of things that need to happen in my story, and it doesn't throw me off to move those events around or add more. But if you need something more in-depth to keep from getting lost, that's fine. Again, the outline is for you. You don't have to worry about making them clean or comprehensive to anyone else. And you're not going to go back and clean them up. If you do that, stop it, stop procrastinating, and go write.
I need a break.
So those are just a few of the outline methods you can use to help come up with ideas for your book and how it should look. You don't explicitly need an outline. Some people are able to just jump into their story and crank out something great. But that is so hard. I've tried that. None of those stories got finished, and they never will get finished. So make an outline. Even if you barely refer to it, it's still so helpful to get the ideas out. And that's what this is all about, getting your ideas out. So I'll wrap up this video so you can get back to that. And in the meantime, don't forget to read and write.
There's no Pepe, so you got